Before we meet our next inductee, Rich Binek, we wanted to share with you Rich's reaction when Jamie Pollard told him that he'd been voted into the Hall of Fame.
I'm joining the call today with Mike because one of the great things I get to do as athletics director is to be able to share with people like yourself when your peers have decided that you need to be in the Iowa State Hall of Fame. So I'm calling to tell you that you are being inducted into the Iowa State Athletic Hall of Fame this fall. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You know, wrestling is a big part of this place, and you were a big part of our history.
The 72 season.
Yep.
I worked out with John Peterson, Ben Peterson, and Dan Gable. So,
and you can't get much better than that.
Oh my goodness, man! I mean, those were my three workout partners.
Yeah,
so you can see why. You see why I ended up being a national champion, because you know, I mean, it was like practice was like, you know, it's like the meets were easy compared to practice.
Well, legendary wrestling coach Harold Nichols was part of our inaugural Hall of Fame class back in 1997, and Nick has been followed into the Hall by a who's who of his great wrestlers. And tonight we had two more. Rich Binek grew up in Wrestling Rich, Waterloo, Iowa, idolizing Dan Gable. And when he committed to Iowa State, that opened the door for an opportunity to train, as he mentioned, with Gable and Ben Peterson on a daily basis. If you're going to train with those two guys, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get really frustrated and say, I'm done, or you're going to work your tail off to be able to put up a fight every day. Well, thankfully for Rich, the latter was the case, and that laid the foundation for him to earn All-American honors twice. And in 1973, he won the NCAA championship at 177 pounds. Rich was a part of two NCAA championship teams at Iowa State. He's a member of the Glenn Brand Wrestling Hall of Fame, and tonight he takes his rightful place in the Iowa State Athletics Hall of Fame. We ask that you turn your attention to the video board to see the story of Rich Binek.
I went to high school at West High School, and Dan Gable was the premier wrestler back then, and he used to come to Waterloo all the time because he lived in Waterloo. He would come and work out with the team when we worked out with the team, so I loved working out with the team with him. And I got better every time he came and worked out with the team, so that's the main reason I came to Iowa State, was because Dan was still here. He was going to stay. He stayed for 2 more years after he graduated, so he was ahead of me. When he was a senior in college, I was a senior in high school, so I didn't even bother with any of the other schools. I got recruited by a lot of schools because I wrestled in the Junior World Tournament, and so it gave me a lot of exposure. But I only went to 2 campus visits. I went to Oklahoma and I went to Iowa State. I was able to make the team as a freshman, so that was my hope and dream, was to make the team as a freshman and be able to wrestle as a freshman. So the thing I really loved about it more than anything is back then people didn't travel that as much as they do now. I mean, and you got to travel. We got to travel. We got a West Coast trip and we got an East Coast trip. So I went 2 East Coast trips and 2 West Coast trips. So I got to see a lot of the country. I think the biggest memories was probably the Oklahoma State memories. And I really liked the old gym, the Armory, because they used to turn the lights down and people just made so much noise. And I came to several meets when I was in high school, and so you kind of get a feeling for it. The same thing happened when I was in high school. You get a feeling for things, and it's part of your memory, you know, that you see this stuff and you want to be part of it. And But I think the biggest meets were the Oklahoma State, Oklahoma State. It was such a rivalry. I mean, they had a number of champions on their team, and we actually beat them in Norman my freshman year, when they had the #1 team in the country. So they were in shock, you know. what really helps is that you have a lot of really good people with you. Like I wrestled with Ben Peterson. My sophomore year, I worked out with Ben Peterson, John Peterson, and Dan Gable, and they all ended up being Olympic champions. And that was my sophomore year, and I just kind of, my season, it was so kind of easy for me, because the wrestling room was what was hard. You know, when you got a really competitive wrestling room, the meets are easy. You know, it's like, wow, this is easy, man, compared to what I have to go through every day, you know. So, you know, I mean, it really helps that you got a good group of guys around you. I was lucky that I had a great group. And I have to include Al Nason too. He was very competitive too. And then Keith Abens was good. I worked out with him, I worked out with Al. So it really helped that you had really good people around you. Well, it's something for my kids and my grandkids, I guess. Not so much for me. Just to be remembered and somebody can say they knew me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Iowa State Athletics Hall of Famer, Rich Binek.
Well, I never would have dreamed that it would have become this big, because Iowa State was kind of a sleepy little school back when I went to school there. And it was kind of I remember the girl to boy ratio was like 3 to 1, I think. So if you were a girl, you wanted to find a man, you came to Iowa State. But I think the wrestling team was a little wild when I was back there, so it's really amazing how they've changed everything. And I'm a little upset about the Olympics, though. They kind of moved all the men out of the way and stuck the women in there instead. So we got to do something about the Olympics. And then the sport, it will continue to grow and prosper. So thank you very much for this honor. It's more for my family than me, because I'm kind of an old codger now. And I moved to Hawaii so I could get away from civilization. This is kind of scary for me, you know. So thank you very much for the honor. Thank you for my family.